Welcome back, everybody. My name's Rachel, and this is my book club. I cannot. I can't. And I loved it so much. I can't. No video is going to be long enough for me to really explain. You should just read it because it's so good. Today, we are going to be talking about Masters of Death by Olivie Blake. I just finished this book recently and I thought it was phenomenal. I have been so excited to talk to you about this because it was so good. And this is the first Olivie Blake book that I decided to pick up. I've seen quite a few of her books all over the place, actually. This is just the one that I landed on. I had read the descriptions for a few of her books, and I was walking around the bookstore actually shopping for Christmas presents when I walked past this. And when I saw how beautiful this book was in person, that's when I was set on this being my first Olivie Blake book. I'm not gonna lie. And just to make it worse, right? So you have this beautiful cover, and when you open it, there's the character art on the inside. Are you kidding? I mean, I'm not one to judge a book by its cover, but I really am. You know what I mean? It looks so good. And I've heard good things about it, so I had to try it. Now, the premise of this book is we are following Viola, who is a realtor, and she is trying to sell this house, but it's haunted. And because she is a creature of sorts, she can communicate with the ghost. And in her debacle of trying to get this ghost to pass on, she gets involved with a whole slew of supernatural things that she didn't intend on getting involved with. And we go on this paranormal journey with our group of these eccentric characters and creatures to figure out what is going on and why our ghost can't pass on and why other strange things are happening. Before we get into any spoilers, I want to say that I really enjoyed this book. Truly just enjoyed reading this book. It was incredibly entertaining. The premise of the whole story was very fun, and I've been trying to read outside of my very, very strict niche of medieval romantasy, things like Crescent City, and then here with Masters of Death are more contemporary fantasy, and I've been trying to push just slowly more out of my comfort zone and just read a wider variety of things. And so for me, contemporary fantasy is very much something I know I'll enjoy. That's just barely pushing the boundaries of what I usually read, which is one of the many reasons that I wanted to try this book. And I think it plays that very well. There's definitely a sense of modernness to the writing, to the style, to the way that our characters interact and speak with each other, but it is still very much fantasy and lore at the core of the story, so it has those big key elements that are very enjoyable for fantasy readers. But I do have to get into spoilers for this book because there's a lot of things that I want to touch on. There are conversations that need to be had, feelings that need to be refelt in this video. So what ends up happening is Viola is trying to sell this ginormous millionaire, not billionaire's mansion, and she finds out that this mansion is still haunted by our millionaire, Tom Parker IV. And she needs him out of the house because he is meddling in things with the house so that way people don't buy it. Suspiciously, though, we also learn in these beginning pages that all of Tom Parker's forefathers have also died by mysterious, murderous deaths. Viola thinks the key to him being able to move on is to figure out who killed him. Viola hires this medium in hopes of them being able to find out how Tom Parker died, and so she tries to enlist the help of Fox Demora. And Fox Demora is one of our other main characters, and he is the godson of death. He's a fraud. He's not truly a medium for the dead, but he is the godson of death, so he can talk to death and therefore fakes his way around being able to talk to the dead through his dad, essentially. And there's a lot of complicated relationships that get involved with Viola's friends and people that Fox knows and Tom Parker's previous family and girlfriend. There's a lot going on between the characters, and that's one of the things that makes this book really good. So our main cast of characters that we're following through this story is Fox, Viola, Tom, Brant, Isis, Calyx, and Mayra. Yeah, that sounds right. Those 7 characters are the people's thoughts, feelings, opinions, and relationships that we get to know the most throughout the story because they are continually present, as well as some very entertaining side characters like the personification of death, the angels Raphael and Gabriel, and Volos, the king of demons and the lord of vice, and Eden, and there's a lot. And a lot of these characters actually get a pretty decent amount of depth in just this fairly short novel. And I think the character development has to be the best part of this whole book. I'm going on tangents. We'll get there. When Viola hires Fox, they find out that he is in fact a sham and he cannot really help Tom. He even tries to summon Death to show them that he can still do something, but Death never arrives upon his calling. And so this is when we learn that Death has actually gone missing. And then our characters get pulled into this plot of Death is essentially being held captive by the king of demons, the king of vice, Volos. And Volos wants to win mastery over Death so that way humanity will continue living through their temptations and sins so that he may gain more power through those vices. It is very complicated, actually, now that I've tried to explain it. The way they do this is through the game that only immortals play. And this part of the book is incredibly cryptic. And so throughout the whole book, all we know is that there is a game that the immortals play, and the one rule is don't lose. Very scary, very riddly. So we find out that Death is being kept captive at these gambling tables, and that the king of vice wants to beat him in this gamble to have mastery over Death, and our group is going to get involved and stop it. But with this premise in mind, I'd like to get into more details of what I thought about how the story was written. Through all of this convoluted mess, the purpose of this book is to actually really dive into what it's like to be human. And I think something I've learned recently is that I really like that theme. And this book is very much meant to talk about what it's like to live, what it's like to suffer, what it's like to love and feel pain. And we get to see that through so many people's eyes in this book, how each character experiences those things differently, but also you're able to empathize with all of them through what they're experiencing. It's very, very powerful character writing, in my opinion. And it also highlights the things that humans truly desire, whether that is, love and joy and living, or whether it's fame and money and immortality. And it kind of lays out what that looks like for people who crave those things, how we crave those things, how we cope when we can and cannot have those things. It is very, very powerful and written in a very complex, layered way, which again is very surprising for how short this is. I feel like it conveys quite a lot message-wise and plot-wise in that short of a time. Something I've seen, because I'm trying to watch, I watched some other videos and read some other reviews about this book before doing this video, and something I've learned is that there is quite a few people who have issues with this book. A lot of them are just that they are not a fan of Olivie Blake's prose, and then some of it is, well, why did she have all this unnecessary stuff in the book? And to be honest, I was really trying to find something so that I could add my own criticisms, because I do think it's important to think critically about that kind of stuff. But I just enjoyed this book so much. I'm so bad at being hypercritical of books so often, because I get so caught up in the pieces of it that I'm enjoying so much that I don't even bother to look for those other things. Those other things never even cross my mind because I'm just too busy enjoying myself. And this whole book, I felt like that. I felt like I was just flipping through the pages, like getting to know these characters and laugh at their banter. It was so good. The dialogue between characters was really incredible, and just getting to know them emotionally and getting to know their flaws on such a deep level was so wonderful to experience. And so I don't really have any notes or critiques, although there are certainly critiques out there in the world. I simply loved this book too much. It made me laugh out loud. It made me cry. Like I just liked it too much. So 5 stars, no notes for me. The way that Olivie Blake kind of conveys this humanity, it's played out very strongly and fleshed out very well in her characters. But what we learn actually is that the game that the immortals play is based on essentially being able to overcome your humanness. The game itself is meant to highlight your biggest desires and essentially your strongest feeling. Again, it is a very nuanced thing. It's a very kind of meta thought process as far as the game that immortals play. In layman's terms, all it is that you are being exposed to things that make you feel incredibly strongly. They highlight things that you really, really want, which is why the immortals play it and not the mortals, because to the immortals, all of these things about love and life and living and losing are all very human and all very short term and small compared to what the immortals are doing in the grand scheme of things. They're able to kind of gamble away these big pieces back and forth because they have forever. But for mortals, it is a true loss or a true win for them to be able to have certain things in their life or to gamble away certain things when they lose the game. When our slew of characters is playing this game, that is when we really get to the heartbreaking stuff, because this was a game that they were not meant to play, but now suddenly we're having their greatest, deepest feelings and pieces of their past that we never knew just laid out on the floor that they're being forced to face with other people watching. And it's very powerful in a way that our characters are kind of being forced to face their emotional scars, their emotional trauma, their anxiety, just in front of everyone and in front of some of the people that they have loved the very most. And something that's really awesome is that we are facing like pretty heavy topics, or topics that everyone understands on a very deep level. So it's really important that the characters in the story are feeling those things on a very real level as well. And I think for me, something I always really appreciate is a well-written character, or a character that I feel like I could get along with, because I feel like I could read almost any story. Like, it really wouldn't have to be that great of a story, as long as I like the character enough that I feel like I'm rooting for them, or that I want to know what's going on with that character, is always something that plays in very strongly for me when I read. And so being able to read these characters and how much I loved them was really great. So we have our main character that we're introduced to right away, Viola. She is a vampire, and that is one of the reasons that she can see Tom as a ghost, is because she is undead. She's an undead creature, and therefore she can see the dead, and she can see the fact that he has not passed on. So that's cool. So they have a lot of banter back and forth because she's the only person that he can talk to. So he bothers her quite a bit, which is really cute and really funny. And her whole deal is that since she's become a vampire, she has been feeling pretty much depressed, is a simple way to put it. She hasn't been feeling a whole lot of anything at all. And her friend Isis has really been the one person that's been able to be there for her and help her through this transition into kind of being this monster. And their friendship is great. But you can really tell that Viola has a lot of suppressed feelings, that she doesn't have these great feelings of joy or anger or anything. She kind of just goes about life like that. So Viola, we learn that her biggest thing is actually that she wants to feel, and now that she's no longer human, she doesn't feel things the same way. And she gets to have this wish from Mayra, and when she wishes, she says, "I wish to feel something much, much larger than I am. I wish to stand on the edge of ruination and defeat, to leap into a chasm full of danger. I wish to feel my blood turn cold with fear and my cheeks burn bright with shame. I wish to feel joy that fills my lungs and sadness that swells within me like a current. I wish to feel so much and so deeply that it washes over me in waves. I wish to drag myself toward something. I wish to lose pieces of myself along the way. I wish for hunger that drives me, for passion that fulfills me, for sensations of taking and having and losing and wanting. And I wish for all of it to come with a price, and a steep one. And then I wish for the courage to pay." And the reason that I think that getting to read Viola's wish like that is so powerful is because it feels so intimate, and you get a glimpse into what Viola is really thinking. Where on the outside, she's quite cold and She even knows that she is struggling to feel something deeper, and all she wants is to have that feeling. Again, touching back to what it feels like to be human, to be able to be swallowed so deeply by emotions that you pay a price for pain, for suffering, or for love. It's really romantic, and it's really poetic, and it's really powerful to hear that from our character, who is so flat on the outside, and a lot of it is not by choice. And then we have Fox Demora, who is the godson of death, a human who has stolen relics from gods and whatever, and so he's like sort of immortal or immune to time, I guess would be a better way to put it. He is human, and he is the only human actually in our immediate group of friends that kind of goes on this journey together. Olivie makes a point to make him the most brash and emotional character of all of our main characters. He reacts very quickly, he reacts very emotionally and angrily, and sometimes even reading you're like, Fox, you're being so dumb, like you're being so emotional, like you need to see past that. But that's the whole point, is he's meant to be this very raw and emotional person, and he's been through a lot, and he's suffered a lot of pain, and his whole thing is that he has suffered so much at the hands of people that he loves that he has chosen to live this life of isolation where, he's going to outlive people that he cares about. It doesn't even matter. He doesn't need to let anyone into his life because he is above all that feeling stuff. That's his whole spiel. Is on the outside, he's this very cold, isolated, one night stand kind of guy, but on the inside he's incredibly wounded, and he's never had closure from the person that he loved so much in the past. And this is where we get into actually one thing that I didn't like, but again, I think it was written this way kind of on purpose, is the person who hurt Fox is Brant. Brant is kind of the reason we are in this whole mess, to be honest. I kind of blame him for a lot of things, but long story short, he messed up. Brant has been meddling with immortal things for as long as he has been alive. He is the son of a god. I'm convinced that he is actually Loki, and he just goes by Brant because all he does is cause problems. And he scams his way into eating the golden apples of Eden's tree that makes him immortal, which is cool. And then he enters Fox's life and falls in love with him. But little do we know at the time, but Brant has this weird curse on him where he can't tell the truth. When he lost the game to Death, Death took as his prize Brant's truth. Again, it's all very enigmatic, you could say. And so Brant essentially is always lying to Fox, and their relationship is very complicated. And Brant is a little bit selfish, and Brant is a little bit selfish. Is his biggest flaw, I think, is that he has these vast and grand ideas of what he could have, of what he could be, of how he could outsmart each and every person and rise to the top. But at the end of the day, he still feels very strongly, and he feels very strongly for Fox. And he kind of has this moral grayness about him where he adores Fox and he loves him and he wants to be with him. But he's also aspired to be this immortal who can show that he is worthwhile, that he can rise above these challenges and these obstacles because he deserves to be amongst the gods and immortals like his father. So he's got this whole thing going on, which I think he should go to therapy for and not take it out on Fox. But we are a couple centuries too late for that, unfortunately. Brant very much plays this morally gray love interest really well because, you get it. The dude quite literally had his truth stolen away from him. He literally could not tell the truth to Fox. So is it his fault for gambling in that sense? Yes. Is it his fault that he can't tell the truth? Kinda, depending on the reader, you would see that issue very differently. I don't know. I err on the side of Brant is a little too selfish and has caused a few too many problems, but I like Fox, and if Fox likes Brant, then so be it. But my favorite romance, my favorite couple, I am getting happy just thinking about it, is Mayra and Calyx. They are perhaps the cutest couple I have ever read, and I feel really dumb getting giddy just thinking about it, but it was so cute. Their relationship is so pure and loving, and I adore Cal. I adore him. And Mayra, and it's so raw and so beautiful, and I love it. I'm going to read to you how Fox describes Mayra in the beginning of the book. Fox says, "She was like autumn afternoons, Fox had always thought, and thought it now, again. She had that glow of late September, soft and solemn as it drifted out of reach. She was the last breath of summer, that quiet little gasp just before the end that feels somehow like sadness, like a burdensome loss, just before all the beauty and freedom dies away." Because Mayra is so beautiful. And there's this whole motif throughout the whole book where Cal has 5 smiles, and one of them is just for Mayra. It's so cute. And at the end of the book, when they go through all of this, you have, this breaking point between all of the characters where they're all fighting for now their humanity and for the people that they love. And at the end of the book, Cal says, "Mayra, it's worth it. His eyes were so lovely, so gentle, so easy to hurt. A moment with you is worth far more than an eternity of paradise." I almost cried when he said that. Imagine being told by a literal servant of Lucifer that a moment with you is worth more than an eternity in paradise. I cannot. I can't. The bar is set so high when an immortal says something like that to you. You know what I'm saying? So that's Mayra and Cal, and I love them both, and Mayra has wanted nothing but to have true love, and Cal has done nothing but love her, and they deserve each other, and that's all I think about that. End of sentence, period, goodbye. But the thing that really made me cry, I started talking about what I thought about each character, and now we're just diving in. It's because you need to know this. We're able to touch on such a wide variety of topics and complications of love and relationships because our main characters are all in different spots in their relationship, right? You have Cal and Mayra, who are in like a situationship where they both care about each other, but they won't admit it. And then you have Brant and Fox, who were in a relationship, but that ended badly. And now, Brant is really trying to mend things with Fox. So you have that whole thing going on throughout the book. You have Viola and Tom, who are only annoying to each other in the beginning of the book, which soon turns into fondness and longing, and then soon turns into, an unspoken feelings kind of situation. I think the most suspense for me was just figuring out what was going to happen between the two of them. All I wanted for Viola and Tom was to have a happy ending, and I'm going to read you the scene that made me decide that they needed a happy ending together. So they arrive at the tables, and Viola and Tom decide to approach one of the tables, not in a formal game, but just to see what's going on with this immortal games that everybody is talking about. And so they both touch the table, and they're kind of transported into what seems to be kind of like a reality, like it looks like Tom's house, like they're back where they were before. They notice that he looks how he did when he was alive, and that Viola can actually touch him now. He's not just this, ethereal ghost roaming around. He'd been like a painting before, present and enchanted but fixed, constrained. And now he was awake. He was dynamic and imperfect and free, and he had come vibrantly to life. His hair had been swept back from his eyes, the corners of them crinkled with humor, and there was something else, too, a brightness to him, somehow, that hadn't existed before. "Want to dance?" he asked, with a strange, alluring recklessness, and she felt her brow furrow, her pulse stutter, her heart bang. He'd never been this close to her. Not really. Not like this. "Do what?" she rasped, and he leaned in as if he might confess a secret, or snatch the certainty from her lungs, or touch his lips to hers. "You believed in me when I was a ghost," he reminded her, "so I don't see why your faith in me should somehow lessen when you have me in your hands." "Do I?" she asked. "Have you?" "In the palm of your hand," he said, and it sounded suspiciously like a promise, but she shook her head, pulling away. "Careful," Mayra warned. Vi shuddered to consciousness with a gasp, opening her eyes to find herself face to face with the angel, who leaned casually against the table's edge. I'm not going to be able to keep that whole excerpt in there because that took me several minutes to read. I remember reading that for the first time and having this earth-shaking feeling of adoration for both Viola and Tom, and just that feeling of them seeing each other truly for the first time just got me so good. And So their ending for me was so important because they experienced this whole like seeing each other and kind of having this really deep connection. And then throughout the book after that, we're already at the last little chunk of the book. And after that, Viola kind of brushes him off, and she does not come to terms with the fact that she is kind of feeling these things for him. And so I was really worried that they were not going to end up together, and the whole ending of their romance was really stressing me out. What happens is Viola gets a second chance at life. The angels send her back to the Parker household and make her human and mortal again. And she returns and she wakes up and her friends are there. You know, the other kind of side characters we meet are there to wake her up and be like, hey, like you can have pizza now instead of blood, right? And so they order pizza. And it's this very bittersweet thing where she wakes up next to these characters that we know, but none that we are close with. Not like, you know, Isis isn't there yet. We don't see Fox or anyone else. And I'm wondering to myself, like, please, where is Tom? You know? And like, he probably got sent on to live his life in paradise or something, or be an angel or a reaper or something. And then, of course, he has his entrance into the door, and it's just so cute. And I cried because I was so scared that he wasn't going to be there. And then he shows up, and then, like, I just cannot explain. I just can't. This book made me feel such joy and sadness and love and this bittersweet whatever. And it was so good. And I loved it so much. Like, I can't, no video is going to be long enough for me to really explain. Like, you should just read it, because it's so good. I'm really sorry that you guys had to watch me ramble so much. I just love this book so much. To give you kind of a summary of what this book was like, essentially you are wrestling with the greater purpose and feeling of what it's like to be human. So all of our characters are experiencing feeling, or the lack of feeling, or the wanting of relationships and wanting more and struggling with that. And that is very much the premise of the whole book, is watching our characters struggle to get the things that they want, and the price that you would pay to have love or to have immortality. And it's very powerful. And I think we can see ourselves in each of our characters. They each kind of have an aspect about them that we all experience, I think, throughout our lives. And they're purposely put at different points in their lives, I think, to really accentuate those things for us as readers. And then we get to see that played out in these games, right, for the immortals, as they're dueling against Volos, the king of vice, and how he's so good at tempting you. You know, he's very much that, you know, devil on your shoulder kind of thing. And it's really interesting to see how these very human things that we just experience and we just feel are personified into the King of Ice. And then you have Death, and you have Raphael and Gabriel, and they are personifications of things that we just experience and feel, and things that we are for being human. And so it's quite a beautiful and poetic thing to read, in my opinion. And Olivie Blake's prose is so wonderful. I think not only is she very romantic in her writing, but I think the way that she writes these kind of longer, you know, long-winded and kind of run-on sentences in a lot of her works make the way her characters are narrating feel very real. It's very much how I feel when I'm trying to talk about something, where you're kind of rambling on, but it's in a very poetic and beautiful way. It's so difficult to explain. I'm not good at explaining things. To give you a sense of how long and complicated some of the sentences are in this book, here's one that I flagged early on when I was like, holy page 11. It says, Death, being a creature of near omniscience and mostly unquestioned venerability, surmised that he was being mocked, which was itself the branch of a more perennial suspicion that he'd aired somewhat critically during the formative years of his recalcitrant ward. Did you get any of that? I had to read that sentence like 3 times just to break it down in my head mentally. Maybe I'm just not that smart. Maybe I should be more intelligent, but I had to reread that a couple times. Feeling the excellent swelling again in her lungs and suffering the euphoric creak in her chest at the feel of him, close and comfortable and real. my heart. I don't know what it is about how it's written. It just strikes my emotional little heartstrings. And I adore it. And I really, really am craving more. It's been a long time since I've been so addicted to someone's writing style. And it's just inexplainable how much I feel at some of these passages in this book. And so I am a little bit desperate to read more Olivie Blake. So I will be ordering more of those soon. If there's anything you should know, it's that I gave this book 5 stars with no notes. It was perfect for me, at least for me. To be honest, this book might have made it into kind of like my top favorites, almost favorite book. Thank you guys for listening to my rant about Masters of Death by Olivie Blake. And my next video in 2 weeks is going to be about the book I'm Glad My Mom Died by Jeanette McCurdy. I'm sure y'all have heard about this book. It's been a big deal for quite a while, and I just never got around to reading it. I'm always hesitant on celebrity stories just because sometimes I do think they get a little bit of overhypedness going, but I'm kind of feeling a memoir. I've ordered a couple memoirs and biographies recently, so I think I'm gonna start by doing a video on that one. If you like this video, don't forget to like and subscribe, and don't forget to leave comments down below on what you think about this book. Did you love it as much as I did? Or maybe you're in the boat where you do have critiques. Don't forget to add me on Goodreads so I can see what you're reading, and I will see y'all next time.